Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to class. I am Mariama Mikogunto, and I will be your moderator for today. But before we start, I'd like to give us 3 minutes to inform our party members and every other person to please join the class so that we can start properly. Our facilitator is already in class, so let's do that in 3 minutes. Thank you very much. All right, good evening, everyone, once again. I'll take the citation while we wait for the others to join us. All right. Amina Miango is a Nigerian-trained lawyer, chartered mediator, and election expert with over a decade of experience in election administration and management. She has worked navigating diverse areas of the electoral processes, including but not limited to understanding legal frameworks governing elections, both domestically and internationally. Election law guiding candidates' qualifications, election dispute resolution mechanisms, political parties, and the complex interchange between legal statuses, and electoral procedures. Throughout her career, Amina has worked to ensure the integrity and fairness of electoral processes, first at the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, where she worked with a diverse group of electoral stakeholders to improve the electoral process. She currently serves as the project lead for the election project at the Center for Journalism, Innovation and Development, CJID, where she continues to develop initiatives to educate voters and enhance electoral transparency, integrity, accountability, and inclusivity. Ladies and gentlemen, our facilitator today, Amina Miango. You have
Hi everyone, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
And ma'am, you're welcome.
Okay, hi everyone. Good it's evening, yeah. Good evening. Hope you're having a good weekend. It's good to take out time from binge watching Criminal Minds to to talk a bit about collation of results. So before I start, I'd like to ask a question. If you were asked to to describe your Nigerian dream in one word, what word will come to your mind? If you are asked to describe your Nigerian dream in one word, what word will come to your mind? You can drop it down to read out. You can. I said dream. I didn't say reality. Your Nigerian dream. I'm already seeing hopeless, paradise. Uh, let's see, good governance. Okay. Um, development, El Dorado, fruitful land, great, good governance, development, functional, freedom, hopeful, orderliness, inclusivity, democratic, freedom, manageable, a fertile soil, justice, good leadership, um, humane, free of oppression. Okay. Um, yeah, and on and on and on it goes. So I'm assuming sweet home. Okay. Progress, value for the poor. Okay. Anything goes. Okay. Yeah. So um safety and abundance. Okay. Well, it's safe to say that all of us, or at least most of us, are hopeful about Nigeria in one way or the other. So before I go into my class proper, I would like to take out time. Let's take maybe a few seconds, a minute, and just um, be silent, um, and show some respect to the 16, or is it 22 people we lost. Was it yesterday that we're traveling by road? So let's take a few seconds and just be silent in their honor.
Hello, ma'am. Are you still there?
Hello, listen. I noticed Amina is off.
Oh, okay. We can still see her here, but we can't hear her any longer. But she has the host function, so I don't know how that can be transferred back to you.
I've retained those sorts of um Lisa, are you
Okay.
there?
Yes, I am.
I've retained those functions.
Okay.
Amina is not in the group right now.
I think she has rejoined.
Can't see her. Can you?
I said I think she has rejoined. I can see her name here.
I can't see her here. Hello?
Maybe she's having a
Lisa, you said maybe she's having what? Lisa, you're saying?
Hi, can you hear me?
Welcome back. Amina Miango.
Thank you.
From that one
Hi,
minute
Kunle.
silence, Naim can't turn silence from classification.
I think I may have to. I think network is bad, so I may have to put off my video. But let me just continue. Hopefully, it stays. So
Thank you very much as always for doing this. So let me just say this. Thank you very much for doing this. But we must also say, if we are to use Hausa Plateau, yanzu, no, no, no. Yanzu Zoom Yanamun dispute. Big English, Hausa after. I've been laughing.
really, really,
I mean, the class is
oh,
yours.
thank you so much, Kunle. Okay, so I'm so sorry for the network issues. It's normal when you are around this side. So I'm supposed to be talking about collation of results and post-election. But we're going to end up talking about a lot of things. So if you have any questions, just keep it for when we're done with the class. Um, then you can shoot. So we can't talk about collation of results without understanding the electoral cycle. Um, the electoral cycle is that part of um, is a cycle that depicts the many activities that you find within the electoral process. So for a lot of experts, elections goes beyond um, just an activity. Yeah, elections is a compendium. Let me use that word of different activities. You know, um, the way the activities come up, they put it in a cycle to show you everything that goes on from the start all the way to election day, and continuous like that. And the reason why it's a cycle is because it is not a it is not like something that has a beginning and an end. Yeah, it is the activities basically can fall at different times, and some of them can continue even onto election day, and some can continue spill over into the next cycle. So basically it just hovers around. And but to make it easier for experts and for election administrators, the cycle is divided into three parts. You have the pre-election, you have the election, electoral period, and then you have the post-electoral period. And for the pre-election, that's when you plan. That's when you train staff and experts. That's when you also register, say, political parties. You register voters. All the registrations that need to be done are done during this pre-electoral period. It's also the time that you budget and you fund and you issue the election calendar, with all the activities that need to happen. That's the time you talk of logistics, election logistics. You talk of election security, you talk of election procurement. Basically, everything administratively, legally, that needs to be done to make the electoral period better, to make elections better. You do it in this within that period of the pre-electoral cycle. And then you have the electoral period. This is the period that you have things like when you've issued a calendar for the elections. You have things like the nomination of the candidates that will stand for that election. So you have things like party primaries. You have the what do you call it? The pre-election cases that arise from the party primaries. You also have the period where candidates campaign for elections. You have um, voting. Voting also takes place within that period. And then even the collation that we are talking about today also falls within the electoral period, because voting and collation go hand in hand. So you have within the electoral period, you have all of that. And then for the post-election period, by now you're done with elections. You're done with, the main event, which is election. You've announced the winner. And then what do? You review the elections that has happened. You review the failures. You review the win. Yeah. Then from the failures and from what you did right, you go towards reform. How do we reform the process? These are some of the challenges we faced in this election. How do we reform it? How do we improve it towards the next this thing? You come up with strategies. You reform the election management bodies. You reform everything, basically. Legal reforms, administrative reforms. All those reforms come under the post-electoral period. So, in understanding what elections are, you need to understand when and where and how it happens. And the electoral cycle is probably the first thing to look at. And like I said, some of the activities from one part of the cycle may spill over to the other part of the cycle. For example, when you're talking about legal reforms, legal reforms can spill from post-election to pre-election, you know, period, because there are some laws that could pass late. You also have the when INEC is issuing the guidelines for elections and all those things. So there could be spillover of activities from one cycle to the other cycle. Now, one of the one of the foundations of elections is that of credible elections is that the elections must have integrity. And how important is integrity to the electoral cycle? Um, a scholar in one of a very well-known scholar talked about election integrity within the context of um, universal suffrage and political equality, an election where, and when we talk about universal suffrage, we take it for granted now that once you are 18, you can register to vote here. It has not always been so. Less than 100 years ago, women couldn't vote in Nigeria, you know, um, and around the world too. And a few hundred years ago, only men with a specific kind of economic status could vote in some parts of the world. So universal suffrage is actually, in fact, there are still places in the vote in every election. I think Saudi Arabia, one country, women cannot vote. So universal suffrage, when you want to say an election has integrity, there must be universal suffrage, there must be political equality. Political equality means that every political party, everybody can equally participate in the process. So if political party A wants to campaign, he is allowed to campaign. I want people to be noting this thing because we're going to talk about it in the context of Nigeria. Do you think that from what I've described now, political equality, that Nigerian elections can be said to have integrity? Then you also have the fact that the elections must be conducted by EMBs who are professional and impartial. And also the process has to be transparent. It must be transparent that, okay, we are doing this thing and it's clearly um, independent and impartial and all of that. So of all these things I've mentioned, do you think INEC or the state independent electoral commissions, do you think the elections held in Nigeria have integrity or a certain level of integrity? Or do we have a long way to go still? So I'm just giving this as a background to before we get into collation of results proper. Another thing I think you should know is that elections do not just happen in a vacuum. Elections are a product of law. There are laws that guide over elections. And this basically means that you cannot wake up one morning. We didn't just wake up one morning and decide, oh, we want to start conducting elections in Nigeria. No, we had to create a law that says, okay, this is the body that will conduct elections. These are the powers of the body that will conduct the elections. These are the offices you conduct elections into. And the document that provides for all that is called the Constitution. For those who do not know the Constitution, though it would be weird to say there's nobody in this class that does not know the Constitution. But yes, so the election legal framework is made up of the Constitution, the Electoral Act, and INEC regulations. INEC has a lot of regulations. So, but I just mentioned one, the regulations and guidelines for the conduct of elections, since we're talking about collation of results, which is an election day activity. So the Constitution, our Constitution was created or was passed or was, well, it was a military regime that that made our Constitution. But okay, it was passed in 1999, and under the Constitution, INEC as a body is created and given powers to conduct elections, to register political parties, to conduct referendums. It is also under the Constitution that the qualifications for president, for National Assembly members, for State House of Assembly members, and for governorship is entrenched. It is also under the Constitution that political parties are created. It's under a constitution that you see provisions that only political parties can contest for elections in Nigeria. It is also under the constitution that the National Assembly is granted powers to make laws for the conduct of every activity, basically within the context of Nigeria. So, and one of those activities is elections, of course. It is also under the constitution that the offices of the chairman of INEC, the national commissioners, the resident electoral commissioners are created. It is also under the constitution that the state independent electoral commissions are created. So the constitution provides for a whole lot, under our laws about, elections and the electoral process. Now, remember I said that the constitution grants the National Assembly the powers, yeah, to make laws for diverse activities. And one of the laws that the National Assembly has made as a result of that power is the Electoral Act. Of course, there are different acts, but because we are talking about elections, we'll talk about the Electoral Act. The Electoral Act, basically, everything that the Constitution has provided that our elections should look like. So let's take an example. The Constitution says that INEC has the powers to conduct elections, to register political.
Okay, we can no longer hear you, ma'am. I think her network. Let's just give her some minutes.
Recall of Senator Natasha Uduaghan. And one of the regulations that INEC has created is a regulation for the conduct of a recall. So just like there is a regulation for the conduct of a recall, there's also regulation and guidelines for the conduct of. Okay, I remember this during police.
We can't hear you any longer. Please, let's give the facilitator some minutes. I think her network is acting up. Welcome back, ma'am.
Please, what was the last thing I said? I just noticed that I was talking to myself.
Yes, I think you were cut off for a while.
Like, I just noticed I was talking to myself. So what I'll do, I'll just switch off my video and then just continue talking. I'm
Okay,
so
no problem.
sorry, guys. So
No
sorry.
problem.
Okay, so let me go back to election legal framework. Did you guys hear when I was talking about that?
Yes, it was around that part that you were cut off.
Okay, so let me go over election legal framework again. So basically, in the conduct of elections, yeah, we have laws guiding the conduct of elections. Like I said, we have the constitution, which is the number one law in Nigeria. For lawyers who call it the grand norm, because it is from the constitution that every other law in Nigeria gets its validity. So we have the constitution, um, and it is under the constitution that we have the basics, yeah, the creation of INEC and the state independent electoral commissions, the creation of the National Assembly, which is given the power to make laws for every activity in Nigeria. We have the qualifications, the creation of the INEC chairman seat and the national commissioners and their qualifications. We have the resident electoral commissioners created under the constitution and also their qualifications. You also have political parties and the constitution providing that only political parties can contest elections in Nigeria. So basically, the constitution gives a framework of what elections should be, the actors in elections, and that's the EMB, the election management body, the actors like political parties and all that. It is also under the constitution that you see qualifications for contesting for specific offices like the president, vice president, governor, deputy governor, national assembly, state houses of assembly, etc. So the constitution gives us this framework on what elections should be, on what our um, um, the political picture should look like. Yeah. And then we have the Electoral Act, which is passed and made by the National Assembly pursuant to the powers that the Constitution has given them. So, under the Electoral Act, you find that everything, that big picture that the Constitution has given under the Electoral Act, it is explained and broken down into manageable pieces so that INEC can implement, so that the courts can implement if they are sitting on electoral offenses or electoral petitions, so that political parties can see that, okay, anyone who wants to register a political party can see what it entails. So the Electoral Act basically breaks down the constitution, the constitutional provisions. And then remember I said that INEC has these powers to make laws and regulations for its activities. So INEC has created different regulations and guidelines. You have the regulations and guidelines for registration of political parties. You have the registration and guidelines for the conduct of elections. You have regulations and guidelines for recall. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't know whether at that point I'd been yanked off. So INEC also has the power to make these regulations. Yeah. And, despite the fact that the constitution says INEC has the power to make these regulations, but the thing is, it is still subject to the constitution. So if there's any part of any of those regulations that is contrary to what the constitution says, let's take an example. I see somebody talking about qualifications for contesting elections. Okay, so the Constitution says that the least qualification should be school certificate or its equivalent. Then maybe under the Electoral Act, the National Assembly decided on its own that okay, you must have PhD to be able to contest for president. All anybody needs to do is to go to court and get that part of the Electoral Act that says you must have a PhD to contest for president to be removed, because it is contrary to the Constitution. So because of that provision, that very provision that you must have a PhD becomes null and void. So despite the fact that the National Assembly and INEC has powers to make legislation, yeah, any legislation they make must be subject to the Constitution. So that's what I was saying about the election legal framework. And then I also started talking about collation of results. I can't believe I talked so much and you didn't get. So what is collation of results? For people who have participated in elections, either as voters or as election staff or even as contestants, I'm sure at some point you've come across collation of results. What does it mean to collate results? Collation of results is basically the tabulation and summation of votes, all the votes that are cast at an election. That's the basic definition of collation of results. And for me, it is probably the most important aspect of election. And why do I say so? We've seen instances in the past where where um where election voting went on well, people went out, voted, and they were happy. And then hours later, people come out and say, okay, this is not what I voted. Or um, some people were attacked at the collation center, or result sheets were snatched, or something happened. And even in those situations, even if a result or even if a winner is finally announced, there's always that suspicion that, okay, they changed our results. And that has been the problem with our elections. A lot of times, people will tell you that problems do not arise during elections. In fact, some observers, when they go to observe elections in the field, they don't even come out during voting period, because it is assumed that, okay, during voting, things will always almost be normal until it comes to collation of results. And that's why it is important. And it is also important to understand the process, so that when you start hearing that they changed this thing somewhere, you'll be able to interrogate such information from a place of knowledge, not just rumor or misinformation or disinformation. Yeah, so that's why this topic is important. So, where collation is not done transparently, the credibility of the process will be questioned, and a lot of times the result is rejected by stakeholders. A well managed election process can be compromised where collation is not handled properly. In every election, there are levels to collation. Collation doesn't, people don't just vote at polling units and then all of a sudden you are announcing the winner. No, it's not done that way. There are levels to every election. In every election, there are levels to collation of results. And I'm going to give us a few instances and try to explain, break it down as much as possible. Please, if we don't understand, let's raise our hands up so I can come back to it. Yeah. So I want to use the most basic election we have, election into councillorship. Um, a councillor is basically the legislature at the local government level. Yeah. And who does a councillor represent? They represent the wards or the registration areas or wards under local government area. Every local government in Nigeria is divided into wards. For those who live in Abuja, the Abuja Municipal Area Council is divided into 12 wards. Kwali is 10 words. Gwagwalada, 10 words. Kuje, 10. What's the other one? Buari, 10 words. And I think that's all the area councils we have, Buari, blah, 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 blah. So every local government in Nigeria is divided into wards. And the ward is the most minute is the minute level of governance. That's where you have councillors who represent each of the wards at the local government council or the area council if you are in the FCT. So let's take Abuja Area Council, for example. INEC conducts elections into area councils in the FCT, while state independent electoral commissions conduct elections into LGA councils at the state levels in the 36 states. So for such election, how does collation happen? Wards are divided into polling units for easy voting, easy administration and all that. So after voting, when everybody has voted for the councillor in a local government election, when everybody has voted, the results from all the polling units that make up each ward will go to the ward level of that the ward level. So if there are 12 wards in Amak, for example, all the results under Wuse ward will all the results under the polling units in Wuse ward will go to the Wuse RA collation center, and you collate it, and then you announce the winner. The person that has won the highest number of votes is now announced as the winner of that election in Wuse ward. Yeah. If it is for Garki ward, the same process happens in Garki. The same process happens in what's the name of this place? In Apo. The same process happens all over the wards that make up the 12 wards that make up Abuja Municipal Area Council. Now, if it is for elections for chairmanship, that's a step higher than councillor, because the chairman is like the executive, yeah, the executive of the local government. Is like the you have governor at the state level, so you have chairman at the local government level. Now, how do you elect? How do you collate results for chairmanship election? Every election, even presidential, don't forget this, starts at the polling unit. That one is the basic knowledge you need to understand about collation, about elections. Every election in Nigeria starts at the polling unit. That's where you vote. That's where ballot papers and results are sorted and counted for the first time. So from that polling unit, you move to the next level. If it is for chairman of Abuja Municipal Area Council or Gwagwalada or Kuje, you take the results from the polling units to the RA level, where all the results under those polling units are collated in each of the RAs. Then from the RAs, you take every result that has been collated. So now you have, say, 300 polling units under RA1. You've collated all the results in that 300. You've collated it at Ward 1. Then you take that result you've collated from Ward 1 to the next level. So all the wards under AMAC will go to the LG Collation Center, and they will be collated. Basic mathematics. There's nothing so spectacular about collation, really. It's just basic mathematics. Add 1 plus 1, 2 plus 2, move it to the next level, add to 200 plus 200, move it to the next level, and then it ends there, basically. So once you add all the results from the wards under the local government, you get the result for the chairman election. And then the person with the highest number of votes gets all the two-third majority in two-third whatever that the law provides for executive positions. Once the person gets all that, you announce the person winner. Now, if it is, let's move to federal and state elections. Let's use presidential elections. I said, hope I'm still here. Okay, yeah, I'm still here. So I said at the beginning, I said that every election, no matter how genge it is, starts at the polling unit. So to collate results at the for presidential elections, you take the results from the polling unit to the ward level. You collate all the results from the polling unit at the ward level. Then when you've done that, you take the results from the ward level to the local government level. You collate that also. Then you take the result from the local government level to the state level. So all local governments, if there are 21 local governments in that state, all the results for the 21 local governments will be taken to the state collation level and be collated. And then if it is governorship election, that's where it ends. You collate, you announce the winner. But if it is for presidential election, there's one more step above. You take all the results from the state level to the federal level, to the national level, where you collate all the results from the 36 plus 7 plus 1 state, that's 37 plus FCT. And then the person with the highest votes, with the two-third majority in two-third in how many states, two-third of the states, and all that uh, becomes the president. So when you're talking about collation of results, it's basically step by step, from one step from the bottom to the top. You collate the results from the bottom to the top. Any questions, or should I continue until I'm done?
You can just go ahead, ma, when you're done.
Okay, so that's how collation basically works. You take results from the lowest level of elections, which is the polling unit, to the highest level of whatever office it is. If it is for councillor, it ends at the ward level. If it is for chairman, it ends at the local government level. If it is for senatorial, for example, where there are multiple local governments under the senatorial district, you collate all the multiple local governments at the senatorial collation center. If it is for presidential, you go all the way from polling unit all the way to the national collation center. It's actually a very simple process, especially if you've participated in elections. It's when you see it in action, you'll be like, oh, okay. This is not as complicated as I thought it was. It's actually not complicated at all. So, like every aspect of elections, yeah, it's not everyone that can be around a place where collation is taking place. So, just because you voted does not mean you can randomly enter a collation center, because you can. Imagine the National Collation Center for presidential elections. If it was to be left open for everyone to enter, do you understand the kind of chaos that could possibly happen? So to remedy that, while there are people allowed into a collation center, most times you find that collation is televised, or you hear it being announced on radio. That's to not only carry people along, but also to give it some sort of credibility and make it transparent that everyone follows, yeah, the process. So while everyone is not allowed to enter a collation center for obvious reasons, INEC or the CX usually remedy it by televising it, or broadcasting it on radio. So who are the categories of people that that can enter a collation center? So going forward, if you want to enter a collation center, if you say, okay, I've learned this thing in class, okay, I'm a polyteracy graduate, and I need to see how the process works in real time. Let me give you an expo on how you can do that. One, you have to work with INEC, either as a permanent staff or an ad hoc staff. That's one of the persons that are allowed into the collation center. INEC officials on election duty. Then you also have security agents. So if you want to enter a collation center, go and join police or civil defense or immigration. That's another category of persons that are allowed into collation center. That's security agents. Or you can also contest for election or become an agent of somebody contesting for elections. Yeah, if you do that, then you'll be allowed into collation center. When you are accredited as an agent, you'll be allowed into collation center to see what's happening. Or if you work for the media, every election, INEC accredits three categories of people: accredited party agents for political parties, accredited media, that's journalists that want to cover the process, and then you also have accredited observers, that's domestic and foreign. So these are the categories of people that can confidently enter into a collation center and not get arrested and prosecuted for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Now, what are some my my I'm supposed to talk about post elections. So I think I'll pause here, get some questions before I continue. Yeah, I think if that's fine. Lisa, let's take some questions about collation before I continue to post elections.
All right.
All right, ma'am.
All right.
All right. If you have a question, kindly signify or drop it in the chat box and I'll read it out.
Please don't ask me what I think whether
Stephen Alekin.
the general elections was free and fair. I
Okay.
will not
Good
answer.
evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, my comrades and the facilitator in the house.
I'm not
my-
afraid though.
okay. All right. My name is Stephen Alishinobu. I'm from Benue State, LP Party. The question is, you said the category of persons that can be that will be allowed to enter the collation center, INEC
Yes.
officials on election duty, security agents.
Yeah.
These two persons, are they supposed to be on duty, like their schedule is on that day, or just any security agent?
No, not just any security agent. You have to be on duty for election duty. And also, even the INEC officials, you have to be an INEC official that is on election duty, because not all INEC officials are on election duty. Yeah, on election day. So for security and INEC, you have to be on election duty. For the media too, you have to be accredited on election duty. For observers, you have to be an accredited observer, and then also party agents must be accredited.
Okay, it's understood. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. Okay, Julius, you can ask your question now. It's okay, Juliet there.
Everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Yes,
you.
we can hear you.
Okay, my question is this. During collation, because I've observed the elections up to collation point. At what point can collation be suspended when there is a chaos in the course of collation of election results? And why am I asking this question? In my state, in the last governorship election, while collation was ongoing, the party agents noticed some abnormalities and wrote, which was the normal thing to do. But then, in the course of their submission and informing the returning officer of their observation, which is not in tandem with what was happening there, the Labour Party chairman was beaten up. And after that, nothing happened. Collation went on, and even that same night, before morning, results were declared. What happens? At what point does it become a crime for something to go wrong and collation is stopped or cancelled and all of that? That's the question. Thank you.
Thank you. So unless there is like serious violence that is continuous, yeah, collation can go on. So like in that instance where there was issues and then somebody was beaten up, if it didn't generate to the INEC officials, the collation officials being attacked, you know, the materials being destroyed, if security can bring back a level of peace, collation can go on. So unless there is absolutely no way collation can go on because of the security situation, you have to continue collation. That's why when you see sometimes collation is moved to one place and then serious security is deployed around it when there's a problem in that town. Let me give an example. I think the Kogi elections in 2020, one local government where we were, there were a lot of issues, security issues around there. As a result, even to write the results in the scores from the polling unit in the result sheets was not possible. So they had to move all those activities. Everything was brought to one center, and then the military with armor tanks. Like that place was so militarized, so scary that day. You know, they had to move everything to one place, and collation continued. So unless people were attacked, materials were torn and everything, collation will have to continue. I hope that has answered your question.
All right. Thank you very much, Ma. Aminu Mohammed, you can ask your question now. Is Aminu Mohammed there? I've asked you to unmute. All right, since he's not here, we are going to take
Probably
Effiong
network.
Innocent.
Okay.
Effiong Innocent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can
We can
hear
hear
you.
you.
Okay. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, our able facilitator. Thank you very much for the insight on election collation. Well, my question is, Ma, please, is there any law from INEC that monitor, protect, and safeguard the process of collation? The process of collation of election results. I want to know if there's something like that, because I believe in all the movement process that you just mentioned. I believe a lot of things go wrong in that process. I also believe that that's the period where a lot of manipulation, of results plays out. So I want to know if there is any law that monitor, safeguard, and protect that process. Thank you, Ma.
Of course. Efyong, like every election, there are laws. Okay, let me put it this way. Like I said earlier on, election is beyond it being election, is also a legal activity. Yeah. So there are laws guiding elections, including laws saying what you should do, what you should not do. And if there are laws that can that can potentially get you into prison, of course you have to mobilize security, because they are the only ones that can arrest and gather evidence for INEC to prosecute the breaking of the law. So like I don't know if you've participated in any elections or seen any election happen. Just as you mobilize police to polling units on election day, there are police in collation centers on election day. Just as you see the military patrolling on the streets on election day, close to polling units, you will find the same thing happening around collation areas. So there's always security in collation areas, in collation centers, always security. I hope I've answered your question.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma. Aminu Mohammed, are you here now? So we can take your question. All right, we'll just take Mark Fred and then we can continue with the class.
Good evening, ma'am, and good evening for everyone. That I've been able to enjoy the section, ma'am, and I thank you for being able to like enlighten us as much as you do. So, like I have a two questions, but like I end up answering one at the moment. Talking about the collision centers and the rest. I've noticed in the last election and even in the last two elections in my state or in the state I was in during those elections, that it got to a point that the collision center was moved to a private residence. So I want to ask, like in the act and then like in the law, is there a specific maybe guideline that says that maybe the collision center will be situated like in a public place, or is it also free to be moved to like any private apartment, and then the Manek officials can also use their like and do their process, because it caused like a bigger issue then, and we have to also protest them, because I was privileged to be one of the party agents. But also at the like end of the day, our protest did not really read any result, and then the process.
Okay, so let me answer the question.
Continue that.
The only okay, the only person allowed to move a collation center is INEC itself. So, and INEC does that in instances where the security situation is iffy, or they feel like where they put for collation may not be visible. So INEC will move the collation center. As for collation center being in the residential area, that's strange, because I've worked with INEC for 10 years and I cannot. Collation centers are not collation centers, voting points. They are they are generally not supposed to be in private residential areas, and that's because the private house may be owned by a person who is a partisan, a politician or something, and that could basically create credibility issues for the elections. That is why INEC avoids, try like as much as possible. If you see under the guidelines for situating polling units, you see clearly that polling units are not supposed to be in private residential areas, and so also collation centers. That's supposed so that the process itself will have some sort of credibility, because if you start putting collation centers and putting in random houses of people, who knows if you end up putting one day you end up putting it in, one of the contestants' houses. So generally, collation centers do not are not created in private residential areas. And if it happens, it is against the law. That person should have been sanctioned. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma. There's a question in the chat box. It says, why are foreign observers allowed at collation centers?
Yeah. People in this class, yeah. Okay, since you are my favorite class, let me answer that. Why are foreign observers? Okay, it all goes back to why are observers allowed to observe your election in the first place? Exactly. Somebody has answered it. Shenwu has answered it. The whole reasons why, in fact, the basic reason why observers are allowed to observe elections is for credibility, whether domestic or foreign. It's for credibility issues, And honestly, I think it's for good. Yeah. Some of the best, some of the what do you call it? Some of the impartial reviews you can get about your election is from foreign observers, because they come. Nobody is giving them money to see what they are seeing and to report what they are seeing. They basically, what they see is what they report. When we talk of when it has to do with domestic observers, politicians register observers all the time and send them into the field to observe. So the credibility is a bit tainted. Yeah. But with foreign observers, look, go check out the EU observation report for 2023 elections. You'll see what they outlined what the issues were without going overboard. So it's for credibility issues mainly, and then it also is also an opportunity to study an election, to study how elections in a particular place is conducted, and then you take it back home. Lessons, there could be lessons you will learn from observing an election in another country. Let me give one example. I was in Ghana in December for the elections, and another Nigerian organization was in Ghana, and they came with the chairman of the Senate Committee on Elections and chairman of the House of Reps Committee on Elections. And when we got back, the National Assembly started talking about amending the Electoral Act to include some things that they saw in Ghana. Even all the observers that came from Nigeria to observe a Ghana election, we were shocked by some things that happened. For example, when the vice president conceded election before their EC could even start collating the results. Yeah, the vice president conceded. And we from Nigeria, we were shocked because it cannot happen. I'm sorry. It cannot happen before INEC starts collation. Imagine before INEC starts collating presidential election results, then one of the contestants says, "Okay, I concede." Like the major contestant says, "I concede," because he already has structures in every polling unit everywhere, and he has collated the result and see that he's not going to win, and he conceded. So when you go for as a foreign observer, beyond the fact that it gives the election some level of credibility, you know, it's also an avenue for a foreign observer to learn and take it back to their country. So that's basically it.
All right, thank you very much, ma. I think we can proceed to the next part of the class now. Another
Okay.
question.
So post-election. I'll come back to you. Just let me run through this, then you ask your question first. My namesake. So post-election. After every election, a number of things happen. When the winner has been declared and returned, and the losers know that they've lost the elections, what happens after that? I'm going to talk about two things. The first thing that happens when a winner has been declared is that the winner is to be issued with a certificate of return within 14 days of that declaration and return. And that is pursuant to Section 72 of the Electoral Act, which says that every person who has been declared and returned should be issued a certificate of return. After that, I've said elections is a election is a contest, yeah, and there are winners and there are, sadly, should I call, okay, losers. That's what somebody who lost election. Yeah, if you lose a contest, yeah, you lost, yeah, you're a loser. Apologies. So what steps does a person who has lost election and who thinks that they shouldn't have lost, who feels like they were cheated in that process, or who thinks that the person um that was declared winner shouldn't have been declared the winner at all, that it was not meant to be so. What does the person do? Is there remedy for someone who has lost an election to get justice, basically? Yeah, there is. So, like, when we talk about a credible electoral process, one of the things that a credible electoral process should have is the ability to resolve electoral disputes. So when a person feels like they actually won this election, but the wrong person was declared, or that the person that was declared shouldn't have even been declared because the person is not. Oh my. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now, ma. Hello, ma. Think. Hello, Ma. We can't seem to hear you any longer. I think she's having a little bit of network issue, so we should just wait a little bit and she'll get back to us. Let's exercise some patience. Thank you.
Hello, Ma, are you back?
She's on the call, but I don't think her
Okay,
network
can
is
you hear
good.
me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Ma.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Ma.
Okay, so I had to use my phone to join instead of the laptop. So sorry.
Bye.
I'm so sorry, everyone. This is a mess. I've never had this kind of issues since taking this class. Okay, so I talked about, where did I stop, please? Can we remember where I stopped? I think you were talking about if someone feels that the person that was declared was not supposed to be declared and all that after the election. Okay. Okay, so if after declaration of um, declaration of the election results, you feel like the person that was declared shouldn't have declared, or that you actually won the election, then the law provides that you can go to court to challenge. That's what the law says. And every election process has to have a credible process for resolving electoral disputes. So after elections, what happens? When the winner has been issued the certificate of return, what happens? When an election has been declared, anyone who wants to challenge the result of the elections has only one way to do so, and that is through the tribunals that are set up to hear the petitions that arise from elections. And basically, those tribunals are set up 30 days before elections. For the presidential elections, the Court of Appeal is the president. Usually, it sits in Abuja, and from the, I'm sure a lot of us followed the presidential election petition tribunal, because that was the first time there, as in all the presidential elections tribunal that followed since time, like a lot of people followed the tribunal. There were a lot of discussions on Twitter about the tribunal. There lots of reports and people were giving back-to-back reports from the tribunal. So anyone who has
Your network is still a bit poor. You're breaking.
seriously followed
breaking.
The last presidential election should
Hello, Ma. We can't seem to hear you. I think the network has started again. Hello, Ma. Can you hear me? Don't know if okay. Let's just exercise patience until she's back.
Okay. This is getting really annoying. Anyway, so like I said, for the governorship election tribunal, the appeal from the governorship election tribunal goes to the Court of Appeal, and then from the Court of Appeal to the presidential elections, to the Supreme Court. Sorry, and then you have the National Assembly and State House of Assembly elections tribunal, and from there, when the tribunal, that's where you file if you've contested for State House of Assembly or you've contested for a National Assembly, either Senate or House of Representatives. That's where you go to challenge the elections. And from there, the appeal goes to the Court of Appeal, and that's where it ends. And when you are challenging an election, you have to do it 21 days after the date for declaration of the results. So if the results are declared today, you have to count 21 days, including weekends. Yeah. Anything after that, your petition will fail. Then for every tribunal set up under the Constitution, you can check section 285 of the Constitution. Just read through it. That's where election petitions tribunal are set up. So for election tribunals set up under the date of the filing, so if you file on or before the 21 days, lapses, from the day the petition is filed, the election tribunal has 180 days to hear the case and also deliver its judgment. And then from there, once the person decides that, okay, I didn't like this judgment, I want to appeal. Once you go on appeal, the appeal court, whether it is the Court of Appeal or the Supreme Court, has just 60 days to hear and determine what else. Yeah, so that's basically it. Like I said earlier on, the Supreme Court is the final court for governorship and presidential election. State House of Assembly, it ends at the Court of Appeal. I've always said that we need to end our election cases before the persons who won are sworn in. And we can do that if we reduce the length of election. We should have all these levels of appeals and appeals and appeals and appeals. When one court can determine and end it, there's no reason why we should have a presidential election tribunal at the Court of Appeal when the Supreme Court can just hear the case and end it within 60 days. Yeah. And there is no reason why National Assembly election tribunals judgment should be appealed. Let the tribunal hear it and end it within 60 days. And this has been a passionate point of advocacy for me, because I feel like we drag our election cases too much, and at the end of the day, other cases will suffer from being abandoned, because election cases take precedence over all other cases. So we have a situation whereby our judiciary is tied up with hearing election cases all year round, over close to a year after elections. And then, they finish, you go on appeal, you do this, you do that, you do that. So I think we need to review the way our courts hear election cases and reduce the time. Let the presidential election be heard by the Supreme Court. Let it end there. There's no need going over it, because that's what you find in other countries, even as African countries, yeah? The highest court hears the disputes arising from the presidential elections. And then they get over it before you swear in the president, so that by the time the president is coming in, he not only has the legitimacy as president, but also cannot influence the court in delivering judgment in his favor. It's as simple as that. So any other questions before I drop off, or before this network interrupts us again?
Okay. Thank you very much, Ma. If you have a question, kindly indicate or drop it in the chat box.
Okay, no questions, Abby.
Okay, we have one question from
somebody's hand is up.
Yes. We have one. All right, I've asked you to unmute, Sheon.
Good evening, our presenter and everyone. Mine is about part of the process also. I still wonder why Nigeria has not been able to do something about logistics. Why should it have to be this NURT? I'm in Lagos, and these buses are rickety. These boys are already biased. And it's just not right. Sometimes on the morning of the election, they hold everybody to ransom that they've not received maybe the balance payment or part payment of the job. That's on one side. Now, why can't, it's just we are people of that class, of this technological age people. As we continue to get into positions, get into discussion, this digital solution, we should keep pushing it. I don't know. I don't see any reason why Nigerians cannot vote from their phone. And I'm bold to say that President Jonathan, PDP lost the election that time for allowing Jega to go ahead with that card reader. The more we get into the digital age, the easier it becomes, the harder it becomes for them to start to manipulate results. Now, this transmission of election, electronic transmission, was what did not make last election look so transparent. But the more we are getting to that, even accreditation, we can see places where we're having 5 million, we are now getting 1 million registered voters. So I think as we are getting into positions, getting this conversation, we should keep pushing for that digital solution. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Hello, ma. Are you there, ma?
Yeah, I'm here. Oh, okay. Can you unmute me on my other device so that I can use it? Because okay, all right. You've removed me.
Okay,
No problem. Okay. So from what Shion said, see, I think one of our major challenges is election logistics. And it is because, truthfully, is this. The only group with the number of vehicles enough to deploy on election day is NURTW and all their plenty branches across the country. And that is the truth. INEC does not have the number of vehicles needed to send materials to over 180,000 polling units. How many polling units? Yeah, do we have? INEC doesn't have that material. So the best option INEC saw to mitigate that process was to use NURTW. And despite no, you cannot randomly sophisticated. Do you know the number of, you are moving materials for 94 million people to vote. I do not think any logistics company can effectively do that. So NURTW was the best solution for that part of elections. Just like why INEC uses youth corpers. Because INEC has a total of probably 15,000 staff across the country, which is not enough to deploy to any elections. And you cannot trust random private citizens. You need somebody with some level of accountability, which is what the NYSC provides for corpers. And that is why corpers are being used. Elections were a very suspicious set of people in Nigeria. And that's the truth. It's a truth that we like to ignore when we procure when we prefer solutions to issues. Nigerians are very suspicious. Imagine saying, okay, one random private company, and then they go and dig who the owner of the company is, and then they dig that the person is married to somebody that is related to somebody that is contesting for presidential elections and is a maybe very well-known candidate. What do you think will happen to that whole process? Even CBN did not survive in the last election. Why? Because the CBN governor showed interest in contesting election, and from time immemorial, INEC has been storing election materials in CBN. But because one CBN governor decided to show some interest in contesting elections, that whole process of storing material in CBN was called to question. So when we are preferring solutions to issues with our elections, remember one thing: we're very suspicious people. Nigerians are very suspicious. And this is why that's one beyond weak institutions, beyond problems with our political elites, beyond problems with election logistics. Nigerians do not even give the system a chance to work before questioning it. And that's one thing I've noticed, that in other places, citizens are, maybe because of the history we've had, but somehow you have to give the system a chance to work before you complain about the system. If you are preempting it to be bad, you've already discouraged yourself from participating. So yes, when we're preferring solutions, remember that where you exist, even the issue of electronic voting. Okay, electronic voting is not the all cure for election issues that we think it is. While it will be very nice to just lie down in my house and vote in elections, it will also come with its own problem. I mean, the whole thing in 2023, the reason why the election is being questioned is because results were not uploaded on the IREV as it was supposed to be. That was the basic issue. And it was technology that was used. Technology was the whole problem. So when technology is not it comes with its own suspicions too, it comes with its own problems too. So we need to be careful when preferring solutions to electoral processes. In the Gambia, they used to use stone to vote in elections, and the elections are still good. Okay, next question, please.
All right, I think we should just take one more question because of the time and those that are fasting. So there's a question in the chat box by F. Young Innocent. Says, my question is, please, ma'am, do you think that our judiciary system owed the oath of integrity in handling election cases after such challenge in our courts?
Say what? Say it again, please.
All right, ma. It says, do you think that our judiciary system... Can you hear me, ma?
Can you read it again?
Okay, I'm taking it again, ma. All right. Do you think that our judiciary system owed the oath of integrity in handling election cases after such challenge in our courts?
Honestly, I didn't hear you, so let me find it and read on my own. At some point you were breaking. Let me see. Okay, I can't. Okay, do you think our judiciary hold the oath of integrity in handling election cases after such challenges in our courts? Okay, let me answer this to the best of my knowledge. I didn't quite get that question, but thing is, I really do not think the courts should be deciding on elections, because especially the way it is in Nigeria now, our elections are so judicialized that everything ends up in court. I want to use one example. In Plateau State, for example, Plateau people voted in an election, and then the case went to court, and like all the people voted under one party were sacked by the courts. These are people voted by the people because the people wanted them there. But the courts, based on the law and technicalities and whatever, decided they should go. And then brought in people that were not voted. And that's my problem with the court deciding on elections. Because in a lot of instances, people actually voted for these people. And when it goes to court, once or twice or three times, the person is sacked from that seat. And that's the problem I have. So I would rather have a situation whereby we have credible elections that are credible enough that they do not need to go to court. That's my own decision. I'd rather that we do not, we reduce the rates at which we go to court to get the court to pronounce on elections. Let's have credible elections. Let people trust that, okay, what I voted for is what was announced. And then the courts will just be there chilling. They won't need to, they'll concentrate on more important things like criminal justice cases, all those other cases, enforcement of fundamental human rights, more important issues, actually. That's what I think. And as a lawyer, I trust the courts, and that's because I'm a lawyer. Yeah. But I understand why Nigerians do not trust the courts. The judiciary has been a disappointment in recent years, and I understand why an average Nigerian will not trust the court. So that's about it.
All right. Thank you very much, Ma. We really appreciate it. It's really been very interesting and educative since morning. So I would unmute everyone to say thank you to our facilitator before we end the class for today. So let's appreciate our facilitator. Let's unmute.
Thank you so much, my namesake. Thank you so much, the
Thank
facilitator.
you so much, Prima.
Thank you
Thank
very much.
Ma.
We're grateful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And funny enough, my son
Thank
is
you,
in
ma.
this
Thank you,
class.
ma.
Oh,
You're saying something, Ma?
She's muted.
Oh, okay. All
I think I
right.
was saying her
Thank you
son
very
is
much.
Madaki. You didn't ask question.
Oh,
Eh. All right,
that's
so thank
cool.
you, everyone.
Madaki did not ask me question.
Don't mind him. So thank you
Bye.
so much, ma'am. It was such an insightful class. I'm sure the students don't even want to go, but as it
Oh,
is,
time. Yeah. And
yes,
then
because
the
of that
network.
time.
Oh, God.
Yes. So just have to bring
Network
it.
was terrible. Thank
So
you.
there'll be classes tomorrow for the students. Tomorrow is the Eid al-Fitr.
Yeah.
So Barakah Salah to all our Muslim students.
Oh.
We wish you a happy celebration. So tomorrow will be class free. So good night, everyone.